Hey everyone, it's Tara. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a tag video, and this one is the Romance Journey book tag. I was actually tagged by B over at Mama Needs to Read Romance. I'll leave her channel in the description box below. Definitely check her out. She has wonderful videos, definitely full of humor and great recommendations. The original tag creator is Bex Reads. I will also leave her channel in the description box below so you can check her out. Prompt 1. About how old were you when you started reading romance? And do you remember the first romance you read? So I was probably in my teen years, maybe around 15 to 17, somewhere around there. I was definitely in my later teens. The first one I read was a YA romance trilogy, and it was Angels Watching Over Me by Lurlene McDaniel. I had actually read one of her books previously and enjoyed it, but it wasn't like a romance. It was more of like a coming of age, I think. And so this one's the one, this trilogy follows like a girl who's in the hospital and she is getting treated for cancer, and she meets an Amish family and they help her while she's in the hospital. And then her and the brother of the person who she shares rooms with in the hospital, they start up a friendship, and then ultimately it builds into a relationship. I loved it. I really want to reread it and see how I would like it as an adult, but I remember just absolutely loving it. And then when I was about probably in my early 20s, Dear John by Nicholas Sparks came out, and I ended up reading that one and enjoying it at the time. And then I want to say probably my mid-20s, something like that, 50 Shades of Grey came out, and the Crossfire series, and I read those two trilogies. I think they're both trilogies. Anyways, I read both of those series and enjoyed them at the time. And then finally, I found BookTube, and that is really where it took off for me. That's where I found The Hating Game by Sally Thorne and ended up loving this one. I also found My Not So Perfect Life by Sophie Kinsella. I read a few of hers. I wouldn't consider this one, I feel like, is more like women's fiction versus a romance, but it does have a romance element in it, and I do love this one by her. And then I did read some Morgan Matson, and I found her. I really enjoyed this one. This again is more of coming of age with a romance element, and so I started to develop my reading personality, I guess, on what I enjoyed. Prompt 2. Did you deliberately seek out romance, or did you stumble upon it, and how? I don't think I sought it out. I definitely sought out that author when I was younger because I liked her previous book that I read. So I sought out that author, and then I enjoyed her book. And then I would just go to the store and I would see, Nicholas Sparks books were popular. So I would pick up one. That's when I picked up Dear John. And then actually the 50 Shades of Grey series and then the Crossfire series were a recommendation from a friend. And so we read them together. And so that was a fun thing. And then finally, most of the recommendations that came from BookTube, and then I started to hone in what I liked based off that. So I kind of gravitated to romance. I realized I read a few genres from BookTube recommendations and from friend recommendations, and I realized that I just enjoyed romance. Prompt 3. Did you start with traditionally published or indie, and has it changed? I started with traditionally published books, and then I would say it definitely has changed. I do predominantly read traditionally published books because that's what I have on my shelves. And I tend to read what's on my shelves. But then I also have the Kindle Unlimited, which are kind of more indie books. And I do read those. And then I also have the Hello Lovely box I would consider probably indie book authors or indie romance authors. So I do read those. So it definitely has switched over time. I still read a lot of traditionally published books, but I do notice that I'm starting to go more towards indie published books. Prompt 4. What was a romance trope you were afraid to try but ended up loving? I would say that's the billionaire's romance trope. I always thought like maybe that like power dynamic wouldn't work in it, but I ended up loving 50 Shades of Grey when I read it, and then I ended up loving the Crossfire series as well by Sylvia Day. And those are both billionaire romances, so I did end up enjoying them. And then more recently, I read the Miles High Club series, and those are like billionaire romances as well. So I definitely enjoy them. They are fun to read. I'd like to read more, so if you have suggestions, let me know. Prompt 5. Is there a romance book you read early on in your journey that you would rate differently today? Yes, I would obviously probably rate 50 Shades of Grey differently than I did back then. I loved it back then because that's what I had access to back then. So I think if I reread it today with like how many romance books I've read, I would probably rate it differently. Also, potentially the Crossfire series would be rated differently as well for those same reasons. They were good when I read them back then. Would they hold the test of time? Probably not. Prompt 6. How has your taste in romance evolved over the years? So I definitely went from more YA romance to more adult romance. My tropes, I've tried more tropes over time. I used to predominantly read like one trope, and then I found that I've really enjoyed like Hate to Love. So like I started seeking those out. I've also now tried like indie published romances, which I wasn't trying in the beginning. When I first started learning about or discovering what I enjoyed in books. I will also say historical romances are a big aspect that has evolved over the years. So I feel like historicals get like a bad rap, and I didn't really try them in the beginning. And then I saw some booktubers, who was it that I first saw? And I was like, oh, I gotta try these historical romances. So I was watching like Jess from Peace Love Books, and I realized like she had like a whole historical romance collection, and she would read a lot, and so it got me into it. So without YouTube, I probably wouldn't have tried historicals on my own. So that has definitely changed over time. Prompt 7. What is the most powerful romance you have read that left a lasting impact? I would probably say Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is a second chance romance. It spans years. They start as like kids and then they grow up together, and then something big happens and it splits them apart. And then it's their love story as they come back together. I really enjoyed it. It definitely has a lasting impact, and I definitely need to read this one again because it was so good. I would also say The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, just because, like I said multiple times before, that this really made me love that hate to love trope, and it is something that I look for in books, and I tend to enjoy them. So this one also had a lasting impact as well. Prompt 8. What was the romance book that told you this is what I'm looking for in my personal life and our partner? So by the time I got into like really deep dive into books and romances, I was already married. So, I mean, I guess I should say, we'll say The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, just because Josh is confident and, like really supports Lucy, even though she thinks like he hates her. That sounds bad. Anyways, so The Hating Game. It's just because Josh is like a supportive character, and underneath like his exterior, he's really just a cinnamon roll. Prompt 9. Which romance book or books would you recommend to a romance newbie and a seasoned romance reader? Newbie, I would probably say The Bodyguard by Katherine Center. So this is actually a recent read that I gave a 5-star to, but there's no steaminess and it is a fake dating. So I think a romance newbie would probably enjoy this one. And then maybe like a middle of the road between like a romance newbie and like a seasoned romance reader would be Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This one is a friends to lovers, and like Hazel is like quirky and fun, and so like it's kind of like opposites attract, because Josh is more rigid and he's like very like straight-laced, I guess. And so there is some steaminess in this one as well. So it's kind of middle of the road. And then I guess I would say for the seasoned romance reader, maybe more like Ice Planet Barbarians series, or like a mafia romance, so they can try out some different tropes. I wouldn't consider myself a seasoned romance reader, but those would be some that I tried in recent years that definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. Prompt 10. In your eyes, what are 3 perfect romances? So my first one is Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting. And I just love this hate to love one. And it's so fun. It's like rival business owners opening at the same night, and they kind of get off on the wrong foot, and so there's some good banter. Yeah, so I definitely think this is a good one. And then if we're talking like historical romance, I would say Herwick and Marquess by Stacy Reid. This one again has great banter and an excellent side plot. It's just awesome. One of the perfect romances in my opinion. It has like a strong female character, and then I really enjoyed the male character in this one as well. So definitely one of my faves, and I would consider a perfect romance. And then the last one I would choose for my perfect romance would be Real by Kennedy Ryan. This one I just really enjoyed the adult aspect of it, how the adult take on the relationship, and how they were trying to decide if they should be together, because she's an up-and-coming actress and he is a seasoned director. And so like how would that look bad? And they kind of like had to work through that and then decide, okay, are we gonna, this growing attraction, are we going to do it? It was very written, very adult, and there isn't like a third act breakup. There's like one scene where I thought it could have gone one way, like, and it didn't. She just did it really well. So I think that one is probably my last perfect romance that I can think of. So yeah, definitely check out those 3. I think they're excellent romance reads. So I will tag Monica over at Pardon This Book Addict. If you haven't done it already, feel free to do it if you'd like. So that was the Romance Journey book tag. Let me know how you got started reading romance. I'd love to hear in the comments below, or how you started reading in general. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to. Bye.